Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. So I'm Lorraine Gatlabayan Pontifex from the EU Switch Asia Policy Support Component, and I will be moderating this side event as part of the 10th Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development. So before we start, just a few housekeeping reminders. Can I ask Zenaida for the slide? So we can have a smooth presentation and discussion in this event. Participants will be initially muted to avoid audio interference. And the meeting will be recorded and will be available for participants in the Switch Asia social media platforms. This is also to remind our participants to type your questions in the Q&A box. And you will see it below at the frame Zoom. And at the end of the panel session, the floor will be open for our speakers to address the questions that will be raised by the participants. You can also reach us by email, and my email is there in the PowerPoint if you have any additional queries. So, and also for our speakers, please show your video and unmute yourself while you are speaking. Okay, so we have 1 hour and 15 minutes, and we will have the opportunity to learn more about the EU Switch Asia program, the work of its partner organizations on sustainable consumption and production, and its contribution to achieving the SDGs together. So let me turn over and invite Ms. Francesca Gilli, Attaché and Program Officer in the Cooperation Section Delegation of the European Union to Thailand, to give her opening remarks. Francesca, you have the floor.
Yes, hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me well? I hope the sound is loud and clear.
Very well, also.
Yeah, good afternoon to all those in Asia and Pacific, and good morning to those in Europe. On behalf of the European Union, it is really my pleasure to open today this side event by the title of EU Switch Asia, Sustainable Consumption and Production, and contribution to the achievement of the SDGs, which is organized by the EU Switch Asia program. Some of you have probably attended other side events during the 10th Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development, which was organized by the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for the Asia and Pacific, which is based here in Bangkok. And this forum, the APFSD, was really crucial to assess the progress, identify priorities, collective solutions on how to accelerate the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in the region. Some of you maybe attended some side events, some roundtables, or some plenary sessions, you've been maybe to the ESCAP, building, to the UN conference building. And as you know, each year, each edition of the Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development focuses on some SDGs. The SDGs this year were number 6 on water and sanitation, number 7 on energy, number 9 on industry and innovation, and on SDG 17 on the partnerships. Even though SDG 12 was not one of the SDG of focus, nevertheless, all these SDGs, sorry, I forgot SDG 11 on sustainable cities and communities, they're all interlinked. And if we promote sustainable consumption and production, we will have more water and more improved sanitation for people, or we will have better and more sustainable communities. If we increase our circular economy footprint, let's say, we can work through renewable energies and not use carbon fossil sources, etc. So even though, and again, as we know, and partnership as well is very crucial, and it's important, and we wouldn't be here together in such a big number, almost 100 people to registered to discuss the aim of to discuss and to exchange views on this side event and how to contribute to the SDGs, the number 12, but the SDGs as a whole. So today, the different panelists will present the work that was carried out in the past years. Some of you already know Switch Asia, I guess the majority, but it fit well into the forum, as I said. The Switch Asia program was actually launched in 2007. There were different phases. The latest one just ended a few months ago and had lasted for 5 years. But the first iteration of the program started in 2007 to respond to new challenges brought about by globalization and to ensure that the growth of economies in Asia would be decoupled from environmental degradation. SDG 12 and sustainable development in general is even more important today in a fast-growing region such as the one of the Indo-Pacific and Southeast Asia. As you know, some of the countries in Southeast Asia unfortunately have some negative records on plastic consumption. So I think for those that are based here in the region, you know, the issues that we're facing. But the program has continued to adapt and to evolve in 15 years to respond to new challenges and to the current geopolitical context. There is Switch Asia, Switch Africa, Switch Med. So there are sister programs or brother programs, as you want, that are working in other regions of the world. So the different switch programs talk to one another and exchange views. So it's not just about exchanging views in a region, but also exchanging views with other regions of the world. But again, it's not, we need to take into account the current geopolitical context, the COVID pandemic that hit the whole world, the war in Ukraine that is causing disruption not only in Asia but all over the world, on the global value chains and the rise in commodities prices. So again, we need to move from linear to circular economy. We need to move from linear and non-effective lifestyles to circular lifestyles that are more effective and more sustainable, to more sustainable consumption and production patterns. And we need to find answers and solutions and develop them. You don't find them in the street. You need to really sit down and think, how can we face the challenges and make sure that the degradation of the environment is stopped or mitigated. So in the next 5 years, there will be a new phase for Switch Asia. I understand that now it will cover even a broader region. It will go on to Pacific, from Central Asia to Pacific. So we will continue to support the green transition. We will continue to support the private sector, national governments, regional organizations to provide and promote more sustainable growth strategies. The Switch Asia team will consist of 6 experts based here in Bangkok that will be members of the policy support component of the program. There will be 2 components. The second component will be through calls for proposals. So to work with NGOs, think tanks, research institutes, private sector operators to promote pilot ideas, but also to move from pilot to full scale. So that's why we're engaging with different ministries in the region, not only ministries of environment. We don't want to preach the converts. We want to expand our work and work with ministries of trade, ministries of industry, ministries of local development to support progress under SDG 12 on responsible consumption and production, but also SDG 13 on climate. So we need to encourage the inclusion of the concerns of the industry, of the private sectors, and they need to be fully involved in nationally determined contributions so that everyone's views can be integrated when there will be the revision of NDCs in 2025 with the UN member states. Some of you might have heard about the Global Gateway, which is the new strategy, new initiative, new approach of the European Union to connectivity and to quality infrastructure. So we will, through the Switch Asia program, we will engage with different organizations in the Asia Pacific region to strengthen the resilience and integration of value chains and to ensure the uptake of international standards. So if, for example, we work on a desalination plant or on other industrial plants, so to make sure that goods that are produced in Asia and can benefit consumers, but also the environment, or not damage the environment. As you know, the EU recently released a package of legislation on due diligence, but also on forced labor, because standards are not just about environment, they're also about social and governance aspects. So it's really important that if production is sustainable, that we take care of people preparing the products, and also that we make sure that these products are good, fair, and sustainable. So let me conclude. The program has worked in the past with the governments, as I said, with the civil society organizations, research institutes. We also started in the previous iteration, the previous phase, a discussion with financial institutions, development banks, with private sector operator, but we need to move, as I said, from the piloting approach to really full scale and make sure that we can scale up sustainable practices and also favoring and promoting access to credit for small and medium-sized enterprises, whether it's geographical indications, whether it's sustainable design, whether it's women in remote areas or young designers. So we need to be inclusive and think of all the potential that the Switch Asia program has on connecting people. I'm now taking the brand of a famous European brand, but really Switch Asia is about connecting people, sharing experiences, and facing challenging together and devising solutions. So we will hear more from Zinaida, the team leader of the policy support component, and from all the other distinguished speakers. I will not take the role of the master of ceremony. I will leave this to Lorraine to introduce them, but they will share, everyone will share how collaboration with Switch Asia can take place to achieve common objectives, to face challenges, global challenges, and to devise solutions, again, towards the achievement of Agenda 2030 and achievement of different SDGs from 1 to 17, as they're all interconnected. So thank you again. I look forward to an interactive and fruitful discussion, and I'm really glad to be here, and I will now pass the floor back to Lorraine, who will guide us through the rest of the event. Thanks.
Thank you, Francesca. You mentioned very important key points, especially issues being addressed in the APFSD, and we look forward to discussing more about this later on. And also a good introduction to Switch Asia and its importance in the region. So now we move on to the presentation of Ms. Zinaida Fadiva, the team leader of the EU Switch Asia Policy Support Component, who will introduce more about Switch Asia and the opportunities for engagement with the program. Zinaida, please go ahead.
Thank you, Lorraine. And it's such a pleasure always to speak after after Francesca, who puts us really in a much broad environment, not only Europe, Asia, sort of relations and regions, but also beyond that. So thanks for mentioning other aspects of Switch. And it is certainly a pleasure for me now to greet our panelists, which are going to give different perspectives from the point of view of collaboration and future vision for collaboration between their organizations and their responsibilities and Switch Asia, because it would also show us the whole ecosystem of Switch Asia partners and how it was working or it will be working in the future. So we are not only presenting something which is happening and what is decided, we also are very much learning about how to go ahead with these stages, because we are still at the stage of inception now and working on development of various interventions. Colleagues, some of the points Francesca emphasized, I'm going to reiterate a little bit. So Switch Asia is certainly focusing on sustainable consumption and production, discourse of which somewhat got enlarged, embracing now the notions of circular economy. So we will speak about those concepts, clarifying relations between them, and really aspiring to the whole direction of turning the regional activities or global activities more in line with circular economy, but doing it very critically and context appropriately. Now, thank you also for emphasizing, Francesca, the relations between sustainable consumption and production and other SDGs, which are focus of discussion today. It is well-known fact that through its goals, or rather targets, SDG 12 is interplaying with targets of all of the other SDGs, and therefore, indeed, it is one of the focal areas which help us to look at the challenges of the world, including challenge of living with disasters or coming out of the different disasters which are hitting now the Earth or have been hitting before. So how to come out of this in a resilient way. And of course, what was very important to see that in the summary of the chair document, which was published today, we could really see a lot of issues with which we also are working, taking coherently and as a nexus. So the document clearly speaking about nexus of food system, finance, energy elements, as well as relations to some other elements. So we are quite in line and continue working in this coherent systemic way. Now, as we know, and though it's our next new stage with rather ambitious perspectives, which Asia is not a new player in Asia. We do work since 2007, but from the beginning of this year, we start the new phase, which we'll call Switch 3 or Switch Asia Phase 3. Geographical coverage is absolutely, truly much larger. We are working in principle with 41 countries in the region, including 3 countries in the Middle East and 14 countries in the Pacific region, including small island countries, seats, Papua New Guinea and Timor-Leste. Right now, it is also important to emphasize, because we are today presenting our plan, what is in the package, what is out of this. We will work with developed countries, but they will not be the quote-unquote, sorry for bureaucratic language, beneficiaries of this program. Rather than we will work with these countries as partners and knowledge collaborators to provide co-engaged activity to countries which are facing more economic challenges than the developed and economically wealthier countries. The objective of this program remain as before, to support transition of the region to low carbon, resource efficient and circular economy, and support sustainability and sustainable supply chain between this region, within this region, and the target region and the Europe. And the economic sectors which we are supporting are centered on the key polluting industries, as well as those which are more export-led oriented, but not necessarily limited to those. So it is food or food system, textile and leather, plastic, sustainable tourism, construction, and the demolition sector. And what is also important to remember, colleagues, that while one way of looking at our activities is, of course, a sector specific or product specific, we also have some of the interventions, or thinking about some interventions which focus on certain tools and frameworks which support systemic and coherent progress towards circular economy. For example, we are thinking about green public procurement. We are thinking about elements like extended producers responsibility and the such. Now, what other elements are quite important, that of course it goes in line with EU policies. So we refer to this as external dimension of the EU Green Deal, which is guided by a variety of relevant action plans and policies. For example, Circular Economy Action Plan, Farm to Fork strategy, EU strategy for sustainable textile, EU plastic strategies, etc., etc. And as Francesca already has mentioned, it is all needs to be seen in the context of Global Gateway, which is supporting integration and sustainability or resilience of the value chain between the region and Europe. So we are talking about supply chains, we are talking about finance, we are talking about policy, harmonization, etc., etc. So it is also about raising awareness of the EU interests and values. So we are going to speak about upcoming standards and norms on which EU is focusing in order to make sure that they are not coming unexpectedly and disrupting the supply chains which currently exist. So it would help those supply chains which are dealing with trade issues, particularly with Europe, but not only, also trade issues in the region, to avoid disruption in the long term. And of course, we are going to be engaged in the support of the partner countries with development of policies, including industrial policies, including practices of the industries to minimize carbon footprint and material consumption, or waste aim towards waste minimization. As at the earlier stages, the Switch Asia has two components. One of them is a grant scheme and another is policy support component. The team which is with you today as an organizing team refers or belongs to the policy support component, but we also will have among the speakers with us today representatives of the grant scheme. So you will hear from the two perspectives. So the grants are focusing on developing and testing uptake of SCP practices in small and medium-sized countries, as well as in the interface between producers and consumers. And we are speaking about both private consumers as well as institutional consumers, such as government or larger consumers or intermediaries between them. At the same time, the second component looks at the enablers, at the policies which help to make sure that the innovations which are developed through grant schemes, as well as some other initiatives on the ground, are being in a favorable conditions to be uptaken, to be upscale, supported through a variety of policy instruments. So it is an interplay between those. And in this work, we are actually having quite an interesting number of partners. We are working with the governments. We are working with EU delegations in the countries, and we are working with different entities and different organizations which are really extremely capable to facilitate this kind of enabling environment, either through knowledge frameworks or through financing or through legitimacy giving to these institutions, again, to these practices. With us today are going to be a few speakers or few panelists which are representing exactly these sectors. So other important things to emphasize, there are three objectives. They are somewhat new, and this is quite important to appreciate. So one of them is design of the action plans for sustainable consumption and production and for circular economy. But colleagues, what is very new at this stage, it's going to be done at the regional level or multi-country level. So we will work with individual countries, but it's going to be through the interventions of the group of countries or of the region. So it's going to be context specific to the countries, but we will design it in a way that we will work simultaneously but differently with different countries in order to facilitate exchange and acceleration of the practices. So it's going to be done as one big change in the focus in comparison with the previous period of operations. The second important objective is to support governments in including SCP target in their national determined contributions. What effectively it means that through this program, we will try to align much more closer on the request again of the regions and the governments, the issue of material consumption and waste and issue of climate change. And we do know that theoretically, those things are understood, but the more we look into practice, the more need in this to do it practically and consciously. So this is another objective which has a new angle, again, to bring climate and material consumption and material efficiency closer together. Finally, we still will be focusing on the policy dialogues between the policymakers and other stakeholders in the region as well as in the EU. So we will go much stronger in facilitation of experience exchange between the two regions. Now, it's a great pleasure for me to introduce to you the new team, though by saying new, it's only partially true. A lot of persons whom you see in front of you and who are with us today are also part of the previous stage. So I am one of them. You know Cosima, who is now going to be working with particularly SCP policy options and circular economy policy options, and looking specifically at SDG 12 progress. We have Lorraine, who is our distinguished chair today. She is going to look at the partnership and building in the region, in the target region, and focusing more on the raising of awareness and capability in the area of SCP. You have, of course, Sarah, who is still our colleague who is facilitating engagement and communication. You know Anne and Nui and Un, who are our really backbone of the team, and is working as a director of our office in Bangkok. Un is making sure that we know how to handle our finances responsibly and transparently, and Un will be our miracle maker in bringing us together for various events and happenings. The two new people who are, sorry, for the old representatives, I covered the team. So we have two new members of the team. One of them is Elodie. Elodie is going to be our main liaison person with EU policy development and partnership building. Elodie has very significant experience of working with EU institutions, including EU delegations in different countries. So she is the one who is informing us also on the MIPS and various other developments in the countries from the perspective of the delegations. And last but not least, the only man of our team is Ranga Palavala. He is going to be the person who will help us consciously bring the issue of climate and material consumption. So we are happy to look forward with you, to work with you, and that you can see it's with this slightly different objectives. Now, just for those of you who did not know about the past of the Switch Asia, and this is quite important to see, because this is exactly the number of people with whom, or the ecosystem of Switch Asia with which we are working now. So I already mentioned the grants or grant schemes. Ongoing in 2023, at the moment at 38, with different focal area. You can see majority, interestingly, working on agri-food, quite significant number in area of textile and leather, sustainable housing, plastic waste management, tourism, different topics with which grants are innovating, right? And another call for proposal will be coming later in the year, as far as we know. Now, policy part of what policy analysis and advisory are 45 have been completed in the previous period, with about equal number of them in South Asia, Southeast Asia, and Central Asia, and they are cross-cutting pan-Asian. 12 thematic ones have been operational. Now we are developing a set of entirely new region or multi-country based ones. So that's something for the particular government and regional organizations to have in mind. Now, this is very interesting. One of the last two slides, which I'm going to demonstrate to you, based on the provision of the policy support for the last period. You could see the distribution of the topic between different regions. It's quite interesting to analyze. But colleagues, this is really important to know, because this requests for those interventions or this support, this advisory from our side have been coming from the government. It's not our brainchild. So this is something which is done on the request of the government. For South Asia, interestingly, the biggest one is Green Building Code. Probably not surprisingly, Southeast Asia, public procurement take the lead. And for Central Asia, national action plans and circular economy in the area of agri-food. So again, we can discuss it and analyze why and how, but this is a background with which we continue to work and see interplay and synergies between the different regions, as well as the new region, which is the Pacific and Middle East. Again, very quickly, for you, the list to dazzle you of different policy support offered on the request of different governments, quite a big number. We can split it further for more fine-tuned topics, but this is something which is quite important to see as a background and foundation, and the partners with which we are to engage, to exchange, and build towards some more ambitious goals. Communication and stakeholders engagement becomes or remains rather one of the absolutely main priority for us. The figures here are just to show to you the interest different stakeholders have in Switch Asia and its ecosystem in its partners. This is interesting also for you to see if you are to promote your relevant activities through the platform of Switch Asia. You are very welcome to do so. You could see that access and interest of different people and organizations to this platform is quite high. Visibility would be quite significant. So we are not only looking at the showing off, but we are planning to use the whole of our communications through different channels, ranging from website to Facebook to LinkedIn and different other platforms, to create co-engagement with you. So we are, and this is most important, all about co-creation together with you, together with the government. We are moving from just giving cold expert advice to much more presence and long-term presence in the countries in the region, and really towards the strategy of co-creation. Now, that would be the end of my presentation. Sorry, except emphasizing a couple of things which you already were mentioned. So we are seeing a lot of opportunity of engagement with all of you, starting with knowledge exchange, co-development, identification of mutually interesting partners. It is about policy dialogues and events. It is searching for opportunities for fundings together, or pointing the interested partners towards those. And it is most importantly about advisory support, where we are going to collaborate with governments and regional organizations on co-development of sustainable consumption, production, and circular economy policies and practices. With this, thank you very much. More details will be provided by our distinguished speakers. Lorraine, back to you.
Thank you, Zenaida. We now invite participants to pose their questions or requests for clarification about the presentations. And if anyone would like to say their questions, please do so. We don't have any questions raised in the box. Are there any questions? If not, we will move on to the panel discussion. So far, no, we can maybe discuss further, as we will have a discussion and where you can also raise questions to Zenaida later. Okay, so now we move on to the panel discussion. We have 6 panelists who will share with us their experiences and insights, introducing their work in the region in partnership with Switch Asia on facilitating SCP policy development and also its implementation. I start with Zafar Mahmudov. He's the Executive Director of the Regional Environmental Center for Central Asia, or CAREC. Zafar, could you share with us an overview of the work currently being done by CAREC and its partnerships with Switch Asia on building capacity on SCP in the Central Asian countries? Zafar, you have the floor.
Thank you, Lorraine. First off, I'd like to start with thanking you for organizing this very informative side event and inviting CAREC to share our experience on regional experience of cooperation with Central Asia. For CAREC as the regional organization, the Switch Asia program granted an opportunity to create an enabling environment for the implementation of national SCPs through the use of international expertise. So CAREC is CAREC leads a consortium consisting of consultancies and firms from the European and Eastern Asian countries to capacitate local technical consultants with a wide range of knowledge and skills on sustainable production practices. Furthermore, in order to create a long-term impact, the provided trainings include on-site support in some of these local businesses and SMEs. Regarding your question on the good practices, when we start working with the SMEs, first we help them reduce energy consumption and other costs on resources. Then we try to shift their focus on improving the efficiency of operations and auxiliary equipment, with the main target to reduce GHG emissions. For example, improving insulation of cold storages or hot pipes are most common practices we begin with. Then it goes with efficient use of compressors and boiler systems, waste management, and so forth. With some companies who wish to continue working with our project experts, we move then to the next level of partnership, and we provide them further trainings on resource efficiency and circular economy, such as smart, sustainable packaging, cascade use of raw materials, and use of organic wastes. So to ensure promotion of and exchange of SCP practices beyond the current project, we engage such stakeholders as local consultancies, international and national NGOs, and banks to develop SCP cells, the so-called self-sustaining entities for SCP consultancies in the region. And on the other level, on the SCP policy development, our consortium has developed a stakeholder map in the region. So then we have developed an input paper on understanding SCP ecosystem in Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, which has been further updated through the national policy dialogues and the roundtables on SCPs of both countries. So then the last but not least, because I'm limited in time as I understand, to support policies, Clean Tech Workshop for financial institutions was organized to gain a thorough understanding on SCP practices and develop groundwork to deliver tailored financing for clean tech investments in the region. Well, I must say, we are just at the beginning of introducing SCP in Central Asia, and we are absolutely sure that this experience has to build on. We have already initiated some discussions on the continued work of the Switch Asia in Central Asia, expanding or covering new areas by raising awareness on SCP practices should be among the new practices and should be introduced to the new wider group of stakeholders in the region. So briefly, this is our experience of working with Switch Asia in Central Asia.
Thank you, Zafar. CAREC is really instrumental in providing that platform for stakeholder engagement. So good thing you mentioned that. And also for providing opportunities for capacity building and information for awareness raising of stakeholders. So we look forward working with CAREC in future activities. So moving on to another sub-region, the ASEAN and countries in Southeast Asia, they have been committed on bringing SCP in the forefront of the political agenda in high-level political dialogues. And this is true, for example, the endorsement of the ASEAN SCP framework. So may I now request Ms. Novita Sari, the Program Manager of the Cooperation Section on Environment and Climate Change of the Delegation of the European Union to Indonesia and Brunei Darussalam, and also the delegation of the European Union to ASEAN, to tell us about the ASEAN SCP framework and the collaborations with Switch Asia program on the framework's development and the operationalization in the future. Novita, please go ahead.
Thank you, Lorraine. I hope you can hear me well. Introduction about the program of Switch Asia 3. I'm congratulate the team. Now it's already starting again. So I'm Novita. I have two hats here. So I'm from the EU delegation in Indonesia, to Indonesia in Jakarta, and I'm also working for EU delegation to ASEAN because our delegation is working for both topics, both region. We have two ambassadors in Jakarta, and I'm really happy to share our experience working together with Switch Asia. So as Francesca mentioned, Switch Asia already active since 2007, while I only know Switch Asia from 2020. So I'm new here, but I already received a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience from the Switch Asia. In the ASEAN region, starting in 2021, Switch Asia supported ASEAN on mapping the sustainable consumption and production in ASEAN countries through the policy component under the Switch Asia phase 2. And it continued until the mapping is developed further into the ASEAN SCP framework and implementation mechanism. So it has some specific goals, such as measures to support progress in SDG 12, promote sustainable food systems, establish good practices for green products and procurement, and promote sustainable lifestyle in urban and rural settings. So this ASEAN SCP framework is it has an implementation mechanism that consists of specific goals, not only about SDG 12, and also touching the work that needs partnership, not only under one specific working group who is dealing with sustainable consumption and production in ASEAN, but also with other working groups and other ASEAN bodies. When we're talking about that, it is like a hard work to do. And currently, the ASEAN SGP is leading by the Indonesia as a leading country. I think towards the end of last year, there was already a request from the Indonesia National Focal Point of Switch Asia, or SGP, regarding how the continuation of the ASEAN SGP framework, because the implementation mechanism only show the goals, and then there are a lot of works to do. And to this, the Switch Asia is very relevant, particularly for this phase 3, which is focusing on the regional level. So we hope that under Switch Asia phase 3, we will work together with ASEAN Secretariat and also the leading country of the ASEAN SGP, which is Indonesia, to work together how to implement this ASEAN SGP framework into some work package, or and also collaboration with ASEAN, other ASEAN bodies and other ASEAN working groups. So if you want to know about this ASEAN SGP framework, the document is actually in the Switch Asia website. Maybe later Lorraine can share the link, and happy to discuss further and work together with this Switch Asia. I hope that I'm not taking too much time, and if you have any questions, please contact me, and I will be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Novita, and also for providing us an overview of the ASEAN SCP framework, and also mentioning the specific goals as priorities of the sub-region, which you mentioned: progress on SDG 12, food systems, sustainable public procurement, and sustainable lifestyle. So we're really looking forward to supporting the implementation of the ASEAN SCP framework under the Switch Asia program. A reminder to the participants to please make sure to list your questions in the Q&A box, and for the discussion later. And also, there was a question earlier if the presentation of Zenaida will be shared. It will be available in the Switch Asia website after this event. Okay, so we move now to our next speaker, who I might say is a veteran on SCP policy development and practice, Mr. Sanjay Kumar. He's the president of the Asia Pacific Roundtable for Sustainable Consumption and Production. He's also the Chief Materials Manager of India's Ministry of Railways. So Sanjay, APRSCP has been around since 2007 and has been very instrumental on bringing SCP in the forefront as a platform for multi-stakeholder dialogue on SCP. So can you tell us, how can we strengthen this, and what should be the direction of APRSCP now with possible partnerships, partnership with Switch Asia and other organizations to contribute to enhance stakeholder participation on SCP?
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. Can you hear me? Can we confirm? Yeah, so thank you, Switch Asia team, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. Now, let me briefly introduce APRSCP for those who were not aware or have not heard about this organization. We were established in 1997, and we are not-for-profit network institution based in Thailand. And interestingly, you know, we came into existence with the active supports of multilateral agencies like UNIDO, UNEP, and UNESCAP to enhance and strengthen cooperation in development for implementing SCP policy and practices in the region. You know, what gives us the unique strength is that, you know, we are rooted at the national level in the form of SCP forum. Say, for example, Sri Lanka has SCP forum, Thailand has SCP forum, Indonesia has SCP forum, Philippines. So that gives us, you know, the strength, and that way we are able to bring, you know, the unique voices of the region on SCP matters at the global arena, right? And we are directly, through this SCP forum are connected with, experts, policymakers, practitioners, and academia who are working really on the ground, right? We work with the national government and other stakeholders for strengthening SCP policy and practices, as I said, and also to raise awareness, because that is something, which we believe is very important for raising the profile of the SCP in the region, right? On the other hand, if you look at, we work closely with partners like, USRICH Asia to build momentum on urgency to address, sustainable development challenges and support national government in the region to transition on low carbon and resource efficient and circular economy. This unique status in the sense, like we are working at the ground and we are also engaged with the regional partners and multilateral organizations. This allows us to voice view of the stakeholder at the ground level and channelize and provide visibility to their views at the national, regional, and global forum platforms like this. And at the same time, we work as outreach agent, to communicate new innovation, business models, and learnings developed under the Saver Switch Asia project, through our SCP forum to educate and raise awareness of the stakeholders on the SCP. This two-way communication, help us to remain global in outlook on matters such as SDGs, climate change, circular economy, etc. And at the same time, we remain grounded while prioritizing SCP policy and project with maximized potential benefit to people and the planet. Over these years, we have provided this platform for multi-stakeholder dialogue among stakeholders on the urgency to address sustainable development challenges by adopting policies that support people, protect the planet, and promote social and economic equity, right? During these years, we have worked, on number of projects with EU-Switch Asia, to name some of them, the important one, like, in 2021, 2022, we did the status of GPP implementation in Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Philippines. We also developed, GPP action plan for the Indian Railway within the government of India. We also work together with the EU-Switch Asia on identifying the 10 most innovative sustainable lifestyle entrepreneurs in Asia, right? So we are working both on the demand side and also on the supply sides. We also worked on developing ASEAN strategy on SCP, and our collaboration doesn't end here, right? We work around the clock and around the years, with them to raise awareness and engage with stakeholders to promote SCP thinking through various platforms like, webinar, workshop, conferences, and our flagship event, API SCP roundtables. The last API SCP roundtable was held in Bangkok the last year, November. And we witnessed many participants from, from this region, right? So I will say that, the fact that we originated as a, as a collaborative effort, right? So collaboration is something which is in our DNA, right? And I think the need for collaboration is much more today than ever before. 3 years back, the entire world was in the grip of COVID pandemic, right? We have collaboratively emerged from the pandemic now, but it has left long-term impact, as far as progress of SDGs in the region is concerned. The region has slipped many notch below against many indicators, right? Therefore, in remaining years, the region not only has to make up for the slippage, but also to work aggressively to achieve SDGs by 2030. The region had to really work hard if you want that no one is left behind. But I would like to emphasize that the scale of challenges is so huge. No single actor, be it government, be it business, be it NGO, be it development agency, nobody can do it alone, right? So going forward, what I would like to say is, like, if you want to strengthen the stakeholder engagement in this region in decision making, then I have 2 points to say here, right? So if you look at the, reflect on a stakeholder engagement for decision making, right? I think we have failed to engage with the, young generations, thinking they don't have enough to contribute to decision making on environmental policy. But I think, we are wrong on this, right? Without taking next generation view on matters that affect them the most, right? How can we address environmental intergenerational issues like climate change, right? We need to think our approach and recalibrate and engage with them more proactively. And the second is, I have a feeling that, our approach for engaging with the stakeholder is not fully participatory. We tend to engage with the stakeholders who have a voice in the system, right? The pitfall of this approach is that we are not able to take into account views of millions of people who do not have voice in the system and are on the margin, right? This results into an environmental policy that is not owned by millions of people. For example, how many times we have spoken we have engaged with Pacific Island countries on climate change? I don't think, other than COP events, we engage regularly with them on the climate change. Therefore, we need to think of ways on how to engage with them. I think, many of you would say that engaging with the NGO is one option. Of course, that is one option, but I would like to put this question for discussion on table and hope that we will be able to get, we will be able to find some solutions. Having said that, we remain bullish, on collaborating with EU Switch Asia in future to co-create solutions for scaling up net geo and circular economy transition in the region. So thank you very much. I would welcome any question from the participant or the listener who is tuned into this webinar. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Sanjay. And correction, 1997, when APRSCP was that's started. So after more than 20 years actively working on SCP, APRSC proves to be a force to be reckoned with, and we look forward to possible collaboration with Switch Asia. Also to mention that as previous board member of APRSCP, I saw that there is also, when it comes to the Thai National SCP network, it was able to build roundtables in the different countries, like in Thailand, Indonesia, and also in Sri Lanka. So that's also a way forward where APRSCP has been very proactive on the ground. So now we now move on to two speakers from Caritas and Jerez, who are leading Switch Asia grant projects in Mongolia. We look forward to hearing from them on how they are providing the platforms for engagements between governments and stakeholders, and in incorporating SCP-related targets in their policies. So I would like to ask first Ms. Mijid Suren Shimedorj, Acting Head of Mission in Caritas Czech Republic in Mongolia, to provide to us an overview on how the Switch Asia projects, sustainable plastic recycling in Mongolia, which is ongoing, and the completed recycling building materials are able to facilitate stakeholder engagement leading to SCP policy reforms. Miji, you have the floor.
Thank you, Lorraine. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Okay, so Caritas Czech Republic has been implementing projects across the sectors in Mongolia since 2006. And I would like to address Lorraine's question by referring to the two Switch Asia projects implemented by Caritas Czech Republic in Mongolia and their specific results. So under our now closed recycling of construction and demolition waste project, which ran from 2016 to 2020, excuse me, we developed a new construction and demolition waste product, recycled concrete aggregate, and the technical standards were approved to prepare this product for commercial production and further development. And then to strengthen legal certainty and incentives for public and private owners to support sustainable consumption and production, the project worked to improve the Mongolian legal framework regarding this construction and demolition waste management. So as a result, the procedure on cleaning, collecting, segregating, transporting, recycling, recovering, it's a long one, bear with me. disposing and landfilling of construction and demolition waste, that's the name of the procedure, was approved by the Ministry of Construction and Urban Development. And this is an important step towards the sustainable development of the Mongolian construction sector. So the construction and demolition waste project and its results, which include this new recycled product and the approval of the standards, adoption, and also the adoption of the new procedure, they were all the first of its kind in the construction sector in Mongolia. And it has laid the foundation for new SDP-related projects in the sector. And one of the key lessons learned during the project implementation was that the involvement of respective authorities with diverse backgrounds is the key to policy development and later implementation of it. So moving on to our ongoing sustainable plastic recycling in Mongolia project, or what we call SPREAM project, which is being implemented from 2020 to 2024. In terms of platforms for engagement, within the SPREAM project, Caritas Czech Republic initiated and established a waste management working group, which consists of key representatives of the waste management sector from state organizations such as the Ministry of Environment and Tourism and the city municipality. Also representatives of project implementers and international donor organizations. So as you can imagine, this is provides a perfect background for to gather all the different stakeholders in the waste management sector. And the purpose of this working group is to get updates, raise issues like specific issues regarding the projects within the sector, to assess the outcomes of the projects or maybe projects that are closing, to avoid duplication as these are projects that are being implemented in the same sector, and to share best practices, and most importantly, to discuss areas of potential collaboration amongst all the members of the Waste Management Working Group. So this Waste Management Working Group currently has an unofficial status, but we hope to make it official in the upcoming, during our next meetings. And so far we have held 2 meetings so far, but they have both been very fruitful. And the project also has a steering committee, which consists of representatives from the relevant stakeholders and state authorities as well. And we organize meetings every 6 months, not only to update them on the project activities, but also to reflect their inputs in our project activities while the project activities are ongoing. So there we have that. And similar to our previous construction and demolition waste project, we're working on developing policy recommendations to improve the legal framework for plastic recycling in Mongolia. This is an activity that's currently ongoing right now. And these recommendations, once finalized and proposed, will directly support SCP and SDG 12 in Mongolia. And we have a working group established specifically for this activity, for the policy recommendation. And we plan to present the recommendations through several decision makers seminars this spring, so in the next couple of months. And other results worthy of mentioning outside of project activities would be, as a result of our SPREAM project, would be the Climate Change Youth Forum, which was organized last year. It was co-organized with the Ministry of Environment and Tourism, the UN, and the various grant projects, including our project. So this was an event where there was significant engagement between all involved parties. Yeah, so that's about it, very briefly. So again, thank you for the opportunity to present about our projects and the results. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask away. And thank you, Lorraine.
Thank you, Miji, and also for providing information on the different platforms of engagement. And we look forward to the institutionalization of the participatory mechanism. That's a part of your project, which is a very important step. And just to inform the participants, Sarah has posted the links on the information of the grant projects. And please look at the chat as well for the other links, such as the ASEAN SCP framework and other. And also, Zenaida mentioned as well, if you could also provide a post stating a question on if the audience to share in one line what is your thinking on the most important SCP topic in the Asia Pacific today. So please provide your answers in the chat box. Okay, thank you. And next, we move on to Ms. Eliane Jari, the Mongolia country representative of GEREST and the project coordinator of the switch off air pollution in Mongolia cities. So Eliane, could you tell us how the project introduced energy efficiency in the building and construction sector through that project, and how you involve women as agents of change? And I believe you're now in the second phase of the project, and what do you think is needed to scale it up through stakeholder engagement to push for policy reforms? You have the floor, Eliane.
Yeah, thanks to organize this wonderful occasion to share experiences. So just a quick introduction about the context. So due to urban migration, a lot of people went to the capital cities, but they are living in homemade individual houses around the center, and they are not connected to the heating collective systems. So they use coal and the stove to warm their non-insulated house, which is the main sources of the air pollution, and make this household the first victim of it. So since 2018, GERES with 4 implementing partners set up a tailor-made insulation market, and success to put around the table all the stakeholders concerned, suppliers, financial institutions, energy auditors, MSMEs, household and institution. A quick share about the main lesson learned and challenges. So first of all is how to propose adapted and affordable solution regarding the income and the house criteria of the target. So basically we design a step-by-step approach, meaning that if you are not able to buy the full package of insulation, we allow you to save 70% of energy. You can still start by the roof insulation and then go further. The second one is how to trigger the insulation purchase. So we made an important awareness work to promote what is energy efficiency and how insulation can bring a better livelihood, comfort, health, less consumption. So this awareness activity were based on 3 pillars: civil society engagement, cascade effects, and what GERES does the best is convincing by the proof. So the households were invited to implement themselves simple solutions to appreciate what could be the added value of more important insulation. Then the third challenge was how to link to the green finance. So the project advocated to the Ministry of Construction to amend the building code to deliver energy certificate for the detached house and prove that there is 20% of energy saving, and then unlock the green loan. Since you have the technical solution, you have the client, you train your brigades, you have the link with the green finance, you still have to establish a table to link all these stakeholders and keep them sitting close each other's. So that's why a web platform was designed with a call center as an entry doors. And this web platform allows everyone to share document information necessary at each step of the process. So all this made switch off air pollution project highlighted as the best business case for financing sustainable consumption practice from Switch Asia program in 2021. All this work also allowed GERES to be included on and join a working group on air pollution at different level and with other initiatives on this subject. So in 2022, GERES and the 4 implementing partners jumped from the phase 1 to the phase 2 in order to scale up. Scale up means a large range of affordable solutions. There is a big challenge to increase the access of the household and the MSMEs for appropriate financing option. So probably a big work with the institution to find subsidies and incentive option. And of course, to scale up, we have to design a comprehensive toolbox replication, and we will have the occasion to test it with the pilot replication in 1 provinces. In order to scale up not only in 1 province, but nationwide, we will have also to work closely with the institution and private public body to hand over the project and then be able to demonstrate the effect on the people, environment, and the economy. So we wish that the switch off air pollution project and the GRS experiences in housing sector in Central Asia, Tajikistan and Afghanistan also could participate in the Switch Asia program by facilitating a larger application on the sustainable consumption in the housing sectors for similar countries in Central Asia, but not only insulation is also important in terms of cooling system for warmer country. And we also hope that the switch of air pollution projects can give evidence proof for the implementation of required policy and for the other part of the program of Switch Asia. I hope I don't go further my time.
Okay, thanks, Eliane, and thanks for sharing the information about the project, and I'm sure scaling it up and also sharing your experiences in other countries will be very beneficial, and we look forward to that. So now we move on to our last panel speaker, Ms. Catherine Todai, who is the Principal Environment Specialist from the Asian Development Bank. Catherine, you have engaged with Switch Asia in the past, contributing to discussions on access to finance and opportunities for collaboration. Can you tell us what do you think are the entry points for partnerships of various stakeholders with financial institutions to contribute to enhancing SCP policies and compliance? Catherine, are you still with us?
Great. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, it's quite clear.
Can you hear me, Lorraine? Yes, sorry, my internet connection is a little bit shaky, so I apologize. And I'm also conscious of time, so I want to leave time for questions. So yeah, I work for the Asian Development Bank, which has committed to align both its government investments and private sector investments with the Paris Agreement, and then now more recently with the 2030 Global Biodiversity Framework. And so sustainable consumption and production and circular economy is a systemic approach that supports addressing both of those goals. But I think it's still the SDG, which is not always put front and forward. So we've been working with Switch Asia as a knowledge partner to support sustainable consumption and production action plans and to coordinate stakeholders along value chains to build capacity for product and business innovation. But we see this new phase of the facility, and also with ourselves, as an opportunity to take a more ambitious approach to market transformation. So I'm really keen that we engage with regional economic platforms like we've heard today from CARIC and ASEAN to build support for aligning sustainable consumption and production targets with industrial and fiscal policy targets, because too much at the moment, current market frameworks are favouring the incumbent business models, the energy intensive, resource intensive business models. But Asia has an opportunity to really become a market leader in new business areas, and Switch Asia, with its regional remit, is well placed to support the relevant multi-stakeholder consultations needed. And also, I think, with the global gateway approach to really use trade as another opportunity in terms of looking at the economic basis for market transformation. So we really want to look at opportunities to engage the finance sector, to prioritize clients that support the circular economy through opportunities to de-risk investments, to mobilize blended finance, and to set standards and measurement protocols to aid investment teams in financial institutions to better understand and report on those investments which have a circular economy impact. And so I'll just leave it there and hand it back to you, Lorraine.
Yeah, thanks, Catherine, and we look forward to future collaborations with ADV. And thank you to all speakers for sharing your valuable insights and experiences. And now we are open for discussion to start addressing questions raised by participants. I apologize because it's already 6:30, and maybe we can discuss for 10 to 15 minutes more, if that's okay, just to have a bit of discussion and also closing remarks. All right, so are there any questions from the participants to the speakers? If not, there's...
No,
yes?
no, Her Excellency Lina is raising hand. I can see it.
Who is, oh, Lina. Her Excellency Lina.
Yes, she's with us.
Okay, good evening from Cambodia. Yeah,
Thank you for joining us.
To meet you all. Do you hear?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, Her Excellency. Do you have any questions to discuss?
Okay. Okay, I just want to
We couldn't understand what you're saying because it's cut. Maybe Her Excellency, Lina, you can provide your question in the chat or in the question, because we couldn't hear you clearly.
Oh, did you hear me now?
Yes. Can you try again, please?
Okay, I just want to share with you that here in Cambodia we are putting the SCP and circular economy as the top agenda for the government, and of course that by support from Sweet Asia and other partner, we already have a circular economy and action plan, and also that the SCP roadmap. And now we would like to move this policy and strategy into the real action, and also that we are in preparing the green public procurement. I saw that our speaker or our participant already raised in the chat box, and just want to raise that whether that the Sweet Asia have like opportunity to support us to move this policy and strategy into the private sector and as a
Her Excellency Lina?
Another one, the question to Novita, because I hear that the Asian SCP working group have already put in the Asian framework, and as we at the focal point of SCP, but I did not have work with any people from Asian talking about the SCP. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Her Excellency Lina. Maybe for the first question regarding, because you mentioned that Switch Asia was able to support the government of Cambodia to the Ministry of Environment in preparing the SCP action plan and also a textile strategy for Cambodia, as well as and your interest on GPP policy. Maybe Zenaida can provide some answers on what's next in terms of support to countries like Cambodia as way forward. And then the second question is about the ASEAN SCP framework that we can raise, which Novita can answer afterwards.
Right, because the second question I didn't see very good. So no, colleagues, Your Excellency, we are looking forward to seeing how to bring the work which you have been doing with expert in your country, in your case in Cambodia, for example, on textile, because that has been the focus of the recent work and recent engagement, how to bring it more into the practices of the particularly private sector, but also the institutions which are driving the sustainable development direction in the country. So what we would need to do in case where activities already have happened, like in Cambodia, is to see which other group of countries would be facing a similar challenge and engage into the implementation. So to put this framework knowledge, this advisory knowledge through, for example, capacity building activities through Cambodian institutions in your case, or through some series of dialogues where industries, together with some other partners, for example, in your country as well as in other countries, would be engaged in the collective development of the solutions, how to find means to implementation. So we are really moving from expert advice to implementation. So in your case, what we need to do, we need to see what kind of other countries would be interested in the similar process, but from the perspective of their realities. So we could discuss this very, very soon, potentially in a couple of weeks after the official kind of launch of our program have happened. I hope it is understood, and happy to follow up on this. Lorraine, back to you.
Thank you, Zenaida. Maybe we can ask Novita to provide some answers to Her Excellency about the ASEAN SCP framework, and also inform her about the launch that's being prepared.
Thank you, Her Excellency Lina, for the questions. Yes, the ASEAN SCP framework document has been there since 2021 or 2022, and then this is actually the time to start, not to start again, but to start the implementation of it, because it has been delayed. That's also probably why you haven't heard as the focal point of SCP from Cambodia. So the SCP framework of ASEAN SCP framework is being discussed under the ASEAN Working Group for Environmental Education, and currently the focal point of the SCP from Indonesia is new. So there was a change between a person. Maybe you know, before it was Pak Adi, but now she's Ibu Yeri. So together with Switch Asia, we are in the discussion on how to start the support of Switch Asia to implement this ASEAN SCP framework. So the plan is there will be a launching or dissemination event sometime in May, in the occasion of the next ASEAN Working Group of Environmental Education meeting. But this is still under discussion between the lead country, which is Indonesia, and also with the ASEAN Secretariat and Switch Asia, how that we can support or organize that event together. So I hope that soon there will be information about this to the all SCP focal points in ASEAN countries, and let's work together to implement this framework and to achieve the specific goals that are mentioned in the document. I hope it answered your question.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Novita. I think that I look forward to discuss with you on that one, and as well as to Zenaida, because this is we are in the process to the work, and especially that with engagement.
Her Excellency, we couldn't hear you anymore. Okay, so since we can hear her, maybe we can. Her Excellency? Sorry, we couldn't hear you anymore. Okay, maybe we can move on because of the time constraint. Thank you, Her Excellency, for your questions, and I hope the answers are sufficient. And just moving on to another question by Ulrich Thyssen. The SCP action plan in the government of Pakistan has been prepared to Switch Asia, and he's asking if the policy support unit can also try to see how this can be implemented. Zenaida, do you want to?
No, a very short question. Ulrich, it's similar to Lina's question as well. We will be having as one idea for the intervention in general is to reach out to the beneficiaries of the Switch Asia advice at the previous stage and check with them what would be their vision in starting operationalization of those knowledge products which were developed. So we do understand that it is quite a serious work which should be done between experts putting the knowledge product on the table, and it's becoming to be operationalized. And so the new strategy of this policy support component is really about enabling this process. What Navita is talking now is exactly this process. So some interesting document has been developed. It was endorsed by the government. The question is, what do we do next? Now, we need to figure it out together with different countries which endorse that. So it could be different actions which would be figured out in dialogue with the government or with regional organizations, including mapping of the main partners, action plan, potentially some pilots, etc., etc. But you're absolutely right. Everyone is aware it's not only a challenge of a Switch Asia. Expert advice is sometimes difficult to put into practice. We will be asking the countries if they are willing to engage in this process with us and how. So it's very much on our minds. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zenaida. Okay, so just looking at the time, I would like to ask all the speakers if you can provide your perspective in one sentence as a way forward. What is the most important takeaway for you resulting from this discussion, and on how we could accelerate the transition towards SCP to achieve the SDGs? Maybe we can start with Zafar.
Sorry, could you?
If you could provide us a takeaway, one sentence from this discussion, and what do you think should be, how could we accelerate the transition towards SCP?
Yes, I think I have. I thought you have read my comment. So in my comment, I have said that it would be useful to blend these theoretical practices that we are implementing in the region with financial support to the SMEs. That would make rather bigger impact. That's in short, in one sentence, my suggestion.
Thank you, Zafar. Novita?
I think from my point of view, the most important things is partnership and inclusiveness. So we cannot work in silo. We cannot only focus on SDG 12, but we have to work together and also looking other perspective and dimension. So I think that's the most important to achieve the goal.
Okay, can you move on to Sanjay?
Yeah, Lauren, I think, we are still working in silos and trying to address the issue, such big issues like sustainable development. I was just looking at the Janada presentation. There are a lot of popularity, on two projects, building and green public procurement, right? But I've never seen, these two people are working together. So I think the importance is to work together and work in a systematic way to address the challenge that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. Miji, can you provide to us?
Well, just on behalf of the grant projects, I always say this, that experience sharing and collaboration across like similar projects across the region is always beneficial to improve activities in the future.
Thank you, Miji. Eliane?
Yes. So of course, the financial aspect is very important, but there is at least in Mongolia a lot of policy, but it's missed a very concrete solution, and probably also some proof that the investment for the institution can go in other direction and they can benefit to this.
Thank you. And lastly, Catherine?
Yes, so I would just add ensuring to bring in finance partners early on in the discussions as part of a mainstreaming, so that innovations are becoming are seen as templates to follow, I guess, moving forward.
Okay, thank you to all our speakers. I think we have discussed many important issues here, though we only got to tap the surface. So I now give the floor to Zenaida to provide her closing remarks.
So, colleagues, again, in many of these discussions, so giving justice to all of your points is very difficult, but I would like to, maybe from our perspective of policy support component of Switch Asia, to highlight 5 points which are very strongly being made not only by the speakers but also by our colleagues in the chat. So one point is very clearly that we need to raise ambitions, and our ambitions are clearly raised in terms of how quickly and how ambitiously, how coherently, how systemically, how broader than one-liner we should go. Sanjay, Elaine, thank you for making these points repeatedly. The second point of importance is the need for localization or domestication of knowledge. So again, how do we put knowledge which is useful into the regional context? How do we make it stay? How do we make it work? So Zafar, you in particular emphasize that through the activities of CAREC and call for knowledge co-development. Thank you for that. The third point is linking really practices with policies. Miji, in your presentation, it came very beautifully, and here quite a lot of people in the chat linked their reflections to this knowledge. Point number 4 is we really have to move from frameworks or from frameworks or expert ideas to implementation and operationalization. So it came from Her Excellency Lina, from our colleagues from the delegation. Ulrich, thank you for this as well. Navita, you have been talking about that, and this is what ASEAN colleagues are looking now, how to operationalize the framework on SCP and put it in practice so it starts working. So implementation, from framework to implementation, to co-creation together. And point number 5 is particularly important. Many of us mentioned finance. Few of us mentioned market. I'm particularly thankful, Katrine, to your point about market transformation. So finance has to go hand in hand to market transformation. If people are not able to sell, no matter how much we finance them, it wouldn't make a difference in the long run. So market transformation coherently looked through creation of conditions for new innovations and new products, potentially with green public procurement tool, much broader understood. Sanjay, you're absolutely right. would need to be kept in focus together with some other aspects, again, systematic approach. So with this, let me just thank you all. We are very grateful for you all to stay. We do know that it has been very, very intensive several days for many of you. You stayed late, particularly big thanks for our colleagues in the Asia Pacific. It's very admirable. But what we wanted to do, and that is a reason also for selecting this time, is that our colleagues in Europe and in Asia Pacific could comfortably join hands and talk to each other. Thank you very much. It's the first appearance of Switch Asia as a team in front of you. So we look forward to a long, localized and successful work with you all. Thank you very much to all of the speakers. Until we see each other very soon, not only online, but also in person. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.